Normal astrology is focused on personality, life events, and predictions. Sometimes it also do predictions. But with karmic astrology, we see people as a soul, like a cycle of living many lives, and also asking that soul, why is it this soul reincarnated in this life? So what is your purpose in this life? What are the things that you are healing, and what is your purpose not only for the soul itself, but also for other people that surrounds you?
Welcome to the Daring Living podcast, where we have honest conversations about personal growth, how to create success, and what it means to live a joyful and daring life. I'm your host, certified life coach, Shirley Huang. Welcome to the mystical realm of astrology, especially karmic astrology. Today, I have on the show with me Wanda. Wanda is an astrologer and a yoga teacher who lives in the northern part of Philippines. She is passionate in guiding women in their 30s on a journey of self-discovery and healing through the lens of karmic astrology. She helps clients decode their soul's blueprint, uncover ancestral patterns, and break free from family cycles that hold them back. She blends personal story of healing family wounds with profound insights to inspire others to reclaim their power and live aligned, meaningful lives. Honestly, I enjoy this conversation with Wanda so much because I'm quite a beginner in astrology myself, and I have come to really love and really wanting to dive deeper into astrology I would say the last 1 or 2 years. I have used astrology. Like I've gotten a reading done on my natal chart and I've used astrology in my branding, in planning and predicting my year, how I want to schedule my different events and launches and traveling and things like that. I'm also in my Saturn return right now, and so I'm really trying to understand it as I'm going through this very like this maturing season that I'm really feeling right now. And I definitely talk a little bit about this in this episode today with Wanda. So there might be some words used in this episode if you're new to astrology that you might feel a little bit like you don't really understand what that means, such as different houses and different signs and planets. So if it feels confusing, please just bear with us. And I want you to listen in on the stories that's being shared in this episode and how you can really use the power of astrology to really help you understand where you are right now, why you are the way that you are, and letting it free you. So, if you've always been interested in astrology, you have some basic knowledge, this would be an awesome episode for you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Daring Living Podcast. I have on the show with me a very special guest. She is living in northern Philippines. She is an astrologer, a yoga teacher, and I believe you also have a background in healthcare, right? Yeah, so please welcome to the show, Wanda.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Shirley. I am so excited for this one. And yeah, thank you for the intro, by the way. And yeah, I also have a background in healthcare and healing in general. It feels like I am drawn to become a healer in my life, but then path changes along the way. So yeah, I'm here now as an astrologer, and most of my focus right now is astrology and yoga at some point, since I'm doing it on the side as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's dive right into it. So can you give us like a introduction of maybe who you are, like who is Wanda, and how did you come about becoming an astrologer? And it's not just astrology because it's very specific, right? Karmic astrology. Yeah, so what has life been like for you?
Yes. I started with my healing journey in yoga when I was like in 25, 26 years old. But then 2 years ago, I started to dive into astrology just for my self-discovery of who I am. Because since I've entered the self-development space through Marie Forleo, if you know her, she's the OG. She's been like banging into my mind the question, what is your purpose? So since then, I've been asking myself, what is my purpose? And then 2 years ago, I I found astrology just so I could remember or sorry, I just part of me is getting to know myself in general. And then I don't have any plans of becoming an astrologer or being certified with it until I stumbled with karmic astrology. That word just hits me into something inside of me that I think this is something that I is part of my purpose. It's part of my calling. So last year, I got certified as a Karmic astrologer with my teacher Vika, and that is the start of knowing it deeper more than anything else in astrology. It's specific, to be honest, because normal astrology is focused on personality, life events, and predictions. Sometimes it also do predictions. But with karmic astrology, we see people as a soul, like a cycle of living many lives, and also asking that soul, why is it this soul reincarnated in this life? So what is your purpose in this life? What are the things that you are healing, and what is your purpose not only for the soul itself, but also for other people that surrounds you?
Mm, that's so interesting. So, what you're saying is that with karmic astrology, there's this idea of you've lived many lifetimes already and that you have past life. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. It
Mm,
Karmic astrology focuses on a soul cycle that this is not your first life. This is like your maybe millionth life or hundredth life in a cycle. And every cycle, it will bring you into a different purpose, a different karma that you need to heal from another life. So that's how karmic astrology is working. It's bridging the gap between astrology and spirituality.
ooh, that's so interesting. When you said that you're like a soul here who has lived many lives, I can definitely relate to that. What are some specific elements that we can start to look at on our natal chart? And just to let you know, I'm like a super beginner in astrology, but I'm like very interested in it. Yeah, what are some elements that we can start looking for on our natal chart when it comes to karmic astrology, such as looking at our past lives and ancestral patterns and things like that?
Yeah. When it comes to karmic astrology, first thing is the South Node. It's not been focused on normal astrology, but South Node is one thing because the South Node and the North Node, it's like a polarity of your past life and the path you're going. So North Node is something that you have lived. Like maybe that's the sign of your previous life. So, like for myself, my South Node is in Leo. So there are parts of me that I am dimming my light. Where in Leo should be like the main character, this person who is so confident. And most of my life, I've been challenged of how to develop my confidence. So that's how it's playing the story of karmic astrology. Another thing is Chiron. It's also the wounded healer. So if you want growth and flourish in your life, you need to find out what is that wounded healer in your Chiron. Where is it located in your chart? So by
Sorry,
identity,
what did you say, Chiron? What is that?
yes, Chiron, it's an asteroid. You can pull it up in your chart. There is, if you will pull up your chart in astro.com, there's like a checkbox that you need to tick just to see that Chiron. And another thing is dark feminine energies is also the focus of karmic astrology. There is there are they are not planets, but they are asteroids. So there are three dark feminine energies that I've been working on right now. It's Hecate, Lilith, and Persephone. So these are like the dark feminine goddesses who will guide you in the spiritual path. Like, for example, Hecate is like the transformational. She's like the goddess of, she's the one crossing the shadows and the light. So she could assist you in doing that depending on where sign your Hecate is, what house. Another one is Lilith. She's like the rejected feminine. Once you feel like your femininity has been rejected, sexuality has been questioned, focus on the Lilith in your chart and see how is it happening in your life? How is it the story that you could weave with Lilith is just focus on this feminine energy of rejected one. Maybe you've been shut down being so sensual in your past life. So work on that, Lilith. And
So,
one thing, last one is Persephone. Persephone is the abducted wife of Hades. This is there is also interconnection with mythology, the story of mythology and karmic astrology, because Persephone is the abducted wife of Hades. So she abducted her to be in the underworld. And so her mom, Demeter, is raging on earth. So she turned everything into drought. So for her to move or for her to be healed, Persephone needs to come back. So Persephone is like the death and rebirth cycle, the spring and winter. So that is what she represents. So it's a cycle of the seasons of your life that you need to work on every seasons, like every aspects of your life. Yeah.
okay. On the chart, there is the south node, there's the no north node that we can use to identify like our destiny or like where we're going. You may also mention Chiron. And how do we look for this dark feminine energy on the chart?
Oh, yeah, for the dark feminine energy, there is for Lilith in astro.com, you can just tick the box there. But for
Oh, okay.
Hecate, you have to put the specific asteroid number. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
For
it's on the astro.com. There are functions that you can do to
yes,
search for it.
yes, and there are also specific numbers like for Persephone, you can just manually type 100 and then it will appear to your chart if you pull
Okay.
it up.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I need to search out more about this, learning about how dark energy and how it relates to your natal chart. Do you mind sharing what your south node or north node is and how it shaped who you are today?
Yes, my south node is in Leo and my north node is in Aquarius. So it will be like the opposite sign in your chart. It will always be that. If the north node is not there, what the opposing sign for your north node will surely be your south node. So they will be on the same degree. And then for my north node, it's Aquarius. Growing up, my mom is calling me like a rebel kid, not super outcast one, but I think growing up, I think outside the box. Like I think differently from the normal kid. I have this silly mind of like normally thinking silly things for other people or the situation more than anything else that ever could imagine. And so I think that's it feels like for me it's a wounding. It's not, it's my imperfection, it's my insecurity. But then when I realized that it is where I'm going, so I should be a person who is really thinking outside the box. So that is my Aquarius in North Node because Aquarius represents the rebels, revolutions. So rebellion, revolution, you need to be like start a revolution, you need to be one step ahead or 10 step ahead than everyone else. That is when I realized that I should be doing outside the box. I should be thinking outside the box more than anyone else because that's how I function. That's where I am going. That's the path I'm going. And also for my south node, a lot of things come up because it's in my 12th house. So knowing that my south node is in 12th house, it's asking for 12th house is a representation of spirituality. So how can I be brave? How can I stand out? And how can I speak up for myself that I am learning spirituality to begin with? Because it's also the shadow of me growing up here in the Philippines, wherein it's a strong Catholic country and it's so difficult to practice spirituality. And I grew up as a Catholic. My family is a strict Catholic family. So they've been asking what's going on with my religion, what's my faith, how's my faith going on. So that is my Leo in North Node that I need to be just brave enough to conquer that.
Hmm. So what it sounds like is really learning about karmic astrology and understanding these elements on your chart. It can give you so much more awareness to help you see where your life's challenges and lessons are. Because I'm just
Um,
wondering, someone could be listening and they could be new to astrology like I am. And I know that astrology and karmic astrology could really help me, but someone might be thinking about what's the point of learning this? How might this help me? So I'm just wondering, do you have any examples or stories of how doing this work, right? Like, for example, getting a reading, understanding so much more about yourself, how this can help people, perhaps transmute their pain or their suffering in this life into medicine for them to know what to do or like their strategy on how to move forward. Yeah, do you have any examples I can share to let people see how important this can be?
yes, karmic astrology has been more of healing your soul because
Mm,
having that awareness of the story that is written in your chart is bringing your astrology is like a blueprint. So it is the blueprint of your soul, something that part of you may not believe, but it is written there. Part of you may be denying at some point, but there will be a time that it will come up. So one of my client mentioned before that I cannot really express myself to my partner. So there is this Mercury lingering in her Libra, which is the archetype for harmonizer, for partnership, for one-on-one relationship. She was telling me that I cannot really express myself specifically for my partner. Wherein he should be like the safe space for me. Because the aspect there, the Chiron is there on the same house with her Mercury. The wounding of her soul is that she cannot express herself to her partner because the Mercury is there lingering. In that area of her chart is the story of let's begin this way. So that's part of story of her chart is that in her past life, she's been shut down by her partner. She's not safe to express herself intimately. So now in this lifetime, it is showing her that she's questioning herself why I cannot do this. It's because in the past, you've been shut down. It's because in the past, maybe your partner, you've been abused at some point, or maybe your partner don't want you to become like this person. So now in this life, you can hardly do these things. So yeah, that's the one of the story of karmic astrology. For when it comes to like suffering and pain in this lifetime, there are specific the story of their chart, or yeah, the story of the chart will give the people or the receiver the medicine, because what is it in the part of your chart that you feel like maybe it's karmic, it's the medicine that you need to receive in this life because it's the shadow. Also, one of the signature of Karmic Astrology is going into the shadows. So how are you facing the truth of who you are? How will you heal yourself through knowing who you are to begin with?
I think a lot of times awareness it can give so much power back to someone. I remember the first time I got a reading done on my chart, I feel so seen and so validated, and I just feel like, oh my gosh, this is exactly why I am the way that I am. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just on my chart, and like this is my design, and this is how my nature, and it like freed up something in me. And I think some people might have this idea of that, oh, you don't want to be defined by your chart. Once it says, for example, I have a lot of Scorpio energy in my chart, and so it's like very deep and very intense. And I used to not think there's something wrong with me because I can be obsessive and I can go really intense with something and just ignore all the rest of the things in my life. And but then after learning about this, I realized that it gave me the validation, but also it freed up something within me, knowing that, oh, this is just the way I am. And then it's weird because it's almost I know that I can be deep and intense. And so then I'm choosing, I felt like I have more power to choose where I put my energy towards to be deep and intense. Because if that's something I'm naturally prone to do, then I will want to set more boundaries with myself to decide where I want to put my energy towards. And that has freed me up so much. And it almost has liberated how I see myself. So that's like my personal experience with astrology. And ever since then, I can never go back.
Yes, it's like astrology will see you through something that it's a mirror. But before your reading, there is a fog in between that mirror. And when you have your reading, that fog will just go away and just you see yourself authentically. And your insecurities or your suffering may be your superpowers eventually. Because
Hmm.
you will know how to like yourself, you know how to put boundaries now because Scorpio are, yeah, like so emotional, but then they could handle deep emotions more than other people, more than other signs, because the death and rebirth transformation of Scorpio is like immense emotion, but on the other side of it, they're less like they're alive. It's easy, it's intense, and it's easy for Scorpio to do that more than any other signs, that they need to be strict with themselves, they need to be hard on themselves. But then when it comes to emotions, Scorpio is one of the signs that could handle. And it's your superpower anyway. To these emotions will be your superpower because it will lead you. It will lead you to the path of where you want to go.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I remember before our interview, we also talked about how on your sign you saw like this pattern that has to do with your like family dynamic and things like that. Do you mind sharing your story of that? Because I think that will help a lot of people as well.
Yes, father wound and mother wound can also be found in your chart. It can be the fourth house or the 10th house,
Mm.
depending on the story of your childhood. Some astrologer, they consider 10th house to be the father wound and fourth house to be the mother wound because fourth is Cancer and 10th is Saturn, which is like the father energy. But then in my case, it is the fourth house is the father energy. My story with father wound in astrology is that my Cancer in my fourth house, where my Mars is, where's my the driving force of my life. It started to I started to realize it when I was in my late 20s that I lost my father when I was 13 years old. And then 13 years after, I realized that I'm still grieving his death without me realizing it. I'm not even aware that I'm grieving at the time. I'm just numb. I worked as a nurse before early in my 20s, and it's a noble job, but it's a job that I need to be so empathic, I need to be compassionate, but I'm numb. I believe back then that I should be a numb person so that I won't be carried away with the emotions going on in the hospitals because intense emotion can be happening there. So when I quit my nursing career and moved to a different country, that is where the activation of my father won't happen because my fourth house is in Sagittarius. It's a travel, it's a different place away from my birth town. So right then when I realized that when I'm in the other country, it's an activation of the abandonment that I felt. It's a realization that my father will no longer come back to save me, wherein these thoughts are not even touching my life years ago, years before, not when I moved to a different country. That is the time that I realized that I need to forgive him because I spent like 13 years of my life blaming him for what's happening in our life. He became my escape. He became my excuse to step on to my full responsible self, to be responsible with my life. But when I was abroad, I have no choice. I have I'm away from family. So then I realized that I need to be responsible with my life. I need to be responsible with my decisions because one of the insecurities I have that I realized when I was living away from my mom is the decision making. Like she decides for me whenever I want it or not. So when I was living away from her, like speedy decision and quality decision making is like so difficult for me. So then when I was abroad, it's like the healing happened. It's also the time that it's my Saturn return. My Saturn is in Capricorn. So it's like a double whammy of daddy issues back then. That is the example of healing the father wound in your chart. And you can also see that the one in your 10th house also can be a father wound story, depending on um, the story of your childhood as well. So it's not that permanent to be seeing these numbers, but it just depends on your life circumstances as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So just to clarify, or just to clarify what you said about where to look for. So father one is the 10th house.
Yes, some astrologers use father wound as the 10th house and mother wound as the fourth house,
Okay.
but it's not, but depending on your circumstances growing up, it might change. I myself don't like to be thinking that, oh, once I see your chart that, oh, your fourth house, this is your mother wound, and your 10th house, this could be your father wound. No, it could change depending on your story growing up.
Yeah.
It will show from
Okay.
there.
And so for those of you who don't know, there are 12 houses,
Oh,
right,
yes.
on your natal chart, and each house has a kind of has a different theme that represents
Different
each.
different aspects of life.
Okay, yeah, and then so what you can also do is look at each house and look at what do you call them? What are the signs that's in each house?
Signs.
Yeah, that's in each house, and it can determine a lot about who you are.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm also very beginners. I don't know too much about this as well. If you want, you don't need to learn any of this. You can just go and get a reading done from
Yeah.
Wanda, and she'll tell you what you need to know. And
Yeah. There's also a work like an astrology guide on my Instagram. They can just link the bio and download the guidebook. It will assist them with the meaning of the planets, the houses, and the signs.
okay.
Simple. I made it so simple that everybody could access it and
Great. Yeah.
understand
And
easily.
we'll have everything down in the show notes. So the other thing I kind of want to transition and I want to ask about this because I'm in it right now. So right now I'm in my Saturn return and it's been horrible. Can you maybe provide us like a introduction about like an easy introduction about what Saturn return is and how might this be related to karmic astrology?
Definitely. So first, Saturn return is a gift. It's a blessing in disguise, but it's not so obvious at the beginning. So Saturn return is when your Saturn is transiting back to where it was when you were born. So for beginners, your specific planets is located in a specific place when you're born, and planets are moving. So after 27 to 30 years, your Saturn will go back exactly to where it is. Few months before your Saturn is there and after, you will feel the intensity of Saturn. Saturn is like the father energy. So it's strict, it's pushing you to be responsible of your life. It wants you to step up your life, to step up your life and be mature. So for those who don't know that you are not maturing with age, like you're 18 years old for women and 21 years old for men, you're maturing on your Saturn return. So there are people who just smoothly go through their Saturn return. They will not suffer, or there is not, it's so smooth sailing for them. But also there are people who will really change. It will be a different person after Saturn return, because they will be put in a circumstances wherein they will need to grow up. It's not to scare anyone, but this is this is the initiation that your soul needed in this lifetime for you to realize who you are, for you to realize maybe your path of purpose at this time if you haven't found it, and also to realize that these are the part of me that I need to heal, I need to embrace. So you also need to realize what part of you, which is, you also need to realize what's going on in your life, what can you control at this time, and what you cannot. So it's very important to be just self-aware in this, if you are, especially if you're in your Saturn return. It will be challenging, but it will be worth it.
Mm.
How's it
My,
going in for you?
Good question. It's been horrible, absolutely horrible. I feel like I've been going through an existential crisis the past 1 to 2 years. And it's not even like a big thing, it's like that low humming just in the background, that feeling of just something is not right. And which prompted me to make this move to move from Canada to Taiwan. Yeah, that's just where I am right now. And I know that, so my Saturn is in Pisces, and I feel very called to, because you know how Pisces is all about being a dreamer and being dreamy and intuitive and things like that. And I really feel like that's the work I've been called to do. And also when it regards to like family patterns, it's almost feel I've always felt like I'm the one in my family that's being called unrealistic. Like, why are you like focusing on the dreamy things? Those things can't put food on the table. And you have to focus on what's material things, but I just can't. And so I feel like I'm like in this place, but I definitely feel a maturing energy. There's like this maturing energy of, okay, you're like this dreamy person, but it's time for you to really own up to it and step up to make the changes for yourself and also for your family and the communities around you and things like that. Yeah, definitely I'm in it right now. It feels terrible. But there is a specific maturing that I'm feeling right now at where I am.
Yeah, that's why it's so good to know when your Saturn return is happening, so that you could be aware that you could be in an open portal of receiving what you need to learn in this without resisting anything. Just going with the flow. It's not an easy flow, but it's still a flow of going on to where your soul want to mature. That's it, yeah.
Okay, I feel like we can dive a lot more into this, but it probably might get a bit more advanced, and I might ask you like a lot of beginner questions. But do you have any? Oh, and you actually offered people the free, what was it, a free download for them to understand more about astrology?
Yes, I have a free astrology guide that they could download. So it will tell them the meaning of the sign, the meaning of the house, and the meaning of the planets, how these planets are influencing them. Like for example, Jupiter is like the planet of expansion and abundance. Mercury is like for communication. Now it's Mercury retrograde, it's coming retrograde. So there are people who I want to talk about a little bit of the Mercury retrograde because it's happening like 3 to 4 times a year. And there are instances where pop astrology is scaring people that you don't have, or you cannot be flying when it's Mercury retrograde, you cannot be signing contract when it's Mercury retrograde, but there are circumstances that you cannot control. So Mercury retrograde is like always reminding us of how we can express ourselves or how we can communicate ourselves beautifully in a way. So for people who are born during Mercury retrograde, like myself, sometimes, and I realized that my creativity and how I express myself is different during Mercury retrograde. It's not that what you're saying that it's difficult to communicate. Yes, there can be technical issues, but for myself, creativity is happening during Mercury retrograde. The more I am braving myself to speak up during Mercury retrograde. Yeah, a little bit of knowledge about Mercury retrograde if they found something in
Mm,
online about it.
that's so interesting. Yeah, so uh, what you're saying is like it really sounds like there's a lot more nuance to astrology. Even the specific astrology that you do with people, it's not just like pop astrology and learning about some things, and they might not be relatable to you specifically until someone does a reading, until you really look at your chart on your own and really feel into it. Because I feel like a lot of these things are also intuitive as well. It's
Yes.
like a tool for you to better understand yourself so much better just because you read a blog post that says what to do or what not to do on Mercury retrograde or on Saturn return that might not directly apply to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wanda, for your wisdom and share your knowledge with us today. Is there anything that you would like to let the people know before we finish? Anything, any last words?
Oh, yeah. I want to remind everyone that for this holiday season, hold on, when will this podcast be out?
It will be out probably, yeah, it will be out like mid-December.
Mid-
Yes, it will be
Okay.
in the holiday season.
Okay. So last words for everybody is that we are under the Sagittarius season, which is a fire sign, going into an earth sign in Capricorn. So I want to remind everybody to make their self-care non-negotiable at this time because this fire sign is giving us a lot of energy, driving force for us to go to different parties, different events, or like traveling in this season. Make your self-care a priority because it will exhaust you. It will exhaust you at some point. And exhaustion going into an earth sign is it's a difficult transition. Earth sign will force you to rest. It will force you to ground yourself. So from this high energy to grounding yourself, it will be like a drop of energy. So from a fire to an earth. I invite everyone to make this self-care a priority in this holiday and just be mindful of how your energy is going on right now because the elements of our chart is also important. Knowing all of this will give you like the proper holiday or the manageable or balanced energy that your soul needed in this season. So
That
yeah.
is such a good advice. Thank you for that. And I know that you're also offering special discounts for people on this podcast, for natal chart reading for 70% off.
Yes, I am offering my reading right now for 70% off until Christmas. So you still have like few days to book for that. I also have a free workbook. It's 2024 reflection guide and 2025 astrology guide that is downloadable on my Instagram. So everyone can reflect for themselves and prepare for 2025. So I have those guides that is available for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wanda. And you can find all the links in the show notes below. And yeah, I'm just glad we got to connect and we got
Thank
to
you
have you
for
on.
having me.
If you enjoyed that episode just now, I would love to invite you into the Daring Living one-on-one coaching room. This is a very safe, very open, and non-judgmental space where you get to play, learn, laugh, grow, cry sometimes, heal, achieve milestones in your work, in your business, in your relationships, all along the way as you create the kind of life that feels successful and thriving to you. Feel free to send me a DM on Instagram at Daring Living to book a discovery call with me, or you can visit my page at daringliving.com/coaching. Again, on Instagram, that is Daring Living, one word, or you can visit the page at daringliving.com/coaching. It's going to be so much fun. Talk to you later. Bye.